"Ma'am, put the weapon down," I shouted, my blood turning to ice. "They're trespassing," she screamed. "I have the right to defend my property." Sarah rose slowly, clutching Emma to her chest. "Please, don't hurt my baby." Karen's lip curled into a snarl. "You should have thought about that before you came to my lake." "Karen, listen to me," I said, inching closer. "We can talk this through. Nobody needs to get hurt." "I'm done talking," she shrieked. "People never listen. You think you can just take whatever you want. Well, not anymore." She raised the gun. "Wait," Sarah pleaded. "We're leaving right now." She stepped backward, her foot slipping on the slick wooden dock. She stumbled, clutching Emma tight. The gun exploded. The sound echoed like thunder across Crystal Lake. Sarah cried out, collapsing as blood poured from her shoulder. Emma's tiny wail pierced the air, her little arm bleeding where the bullet had torn through. Both of them toppled into the water, red spreading in ripples across the glassy surface. "No!" I screamed, diving in after them. Sarah was limp, unconscious, but somehow she kept Emma's head above water. I dragged them both onto the dock, my hands trembling as I pressed against their wounds, praying they'd survive. Within minutes, sirens wailed. 2 ambulances arrived. Paramedics rushed to save my family. Karen was dragged away in handcuffs, screaming that she had been defending her lake, but I didn't hear her. All I could hear was Emma's cries and Sarah's shallow breaths. The hospital corridors smelled of antiseptic and fear. I paced outside the operating room, my fists clenched, my shirt still damp from lake water and stained with my family's blood. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, a surgeon emerged, peeling off his gloves. His face was grave. "Your wife survived the surgery," he said. "The bullet missed her vital organs, but the damage to her shoulder is severe. Recovery will take months." My throat tightened, and my baby. He hesitated, then sighed. "We removed the bullet fragments from her arm. She's stable, but the scars will remain for life. No 6-month-old should ever go through something like this." I pressed a trembling hand to my forehead. The weight of guilt crushed me. I should have sold the cabin. I should have taken them away when the threats began. When Sarah finally opened her eyes, she was pale, her body weak. But her gaze found Emma in the crib beside her, bandaged arm raised in restless sleep. Tears filled her eyes. "Don't blame yourself," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "Don't let her win. Sarah, she shot you. She shot our baby." I choked out. "All the more reason to fight," she said firmly, though her body trembled with pain. "Promise me. Don't run. Don't give up." I gripped her hand tightly, my heart pounding with a new fire. "I promise I'll make sure she never hurts us again." While Sarah and Emma recovered in the hospital, I hired a private investigator. If Karen thought her reign of terror would break us, she was wrong. I wanted answers every dirty secret she was hiding. 2 weeks later, the investigator dropped a thick file onto my table. "You'll want to sit down," he warned. The file revealed everything. For over a decade, Karen had run the HOA like a dictator. She had been siphoning money from the HOA's funds into her personal accounts, thousands of dollars gone without explanation. She created rules that never existed in official bylaws, enforcing them with threats and intimidation. But the most shocking part wasn't the corruption. It was her history of harassment. 3 other families had once owned cabins on Crystal Lake. Each one had left after relentless pressure from Karen. Broken windows, anonymous complaints, community meetings where neighbors shouted them down. The pattern was clear. She had driven them away the same way. She tried with us. And then came the twist that made my blood boil. Karen didn't even own lakefront property. She lived in a small house up the hill, nowhere near the shoreline. She had been screaming about her lake for 20 years, but she had no more claim to it than a stranger passing by. The investigator leaned in and tapped the final page of the report. "And here's the kicker. The original deed to your property dated back to 1952 doesn't just give you access to the water." He paused for effect. "It gives you ownership of the entire lake, all 47 acres of it." My jaw dropped. "You mean," he nodded, "every dock, every boat, every ripple of Crystal Lake belongs to you?" For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt power shift in my favor. I stared at the deed for hours, barely believing what I was reading. Not only did I own the cabin and the 50 feet of shoreline, it turned out I legally owned the entire lake. Every dock, every boat, every fish swimming beneath the surface. For decades, families had been using my lake without knowing it, including Karen Morrison, the woman who tried to destroy us. The irony was almost too much to process. She had screamed about trespassers. She had claimed authority as HOA president. She had threatened my family in the name of her lake. But in reality, she had been trespassing on my property for 20 years. I called my lawyer immediately. She confirmed every detail after reviewing the original deed and survey maps. "This is unprecedented," she admitted. "But it's ironclad. You own all of Crystal Lake." "So that means," I said slowly, "I can revoke Karen Morrison's permission to use it." My lawyer nodded. "Yes, and if she violates it, it's criminal trespassing." That same week, she drafted a certified letter addressed to Karen, delivered right to her doorstep. It spelled everything out in clear, unforgiving language, effective immediately. Karen Morrison was permanently banned from Crystal Lake. No swimming, no boating, no fishing, no touching the water. Any attempt to access it would be considered trespassing, prosecuted to the full extent of the law. She had 30 days to remove any property, including her dock. 20 minutes after the letter was delivered, my phone rang. "This is impossible," Karen shrieked. "You can't own the whole lake." "Actually," I said calmly, "I do." Her breathing came hard and fast through the phone. "You think you're so smart. This isn't over. I'll fight you." "Good luck," I said. From prison, Karen didn't waste time. The moment she received the ban, she unleashed a storm of legal filings. Her lawyers flooded the courthouse with claims that the HOA had established ownership through years of maintenance, that the other homeowners had earned rights through adverse possession, that the 1952 deed was outdated and invalid, that my documents were forged. It was a desperate shotgun blast of excuses. But none of it mattered. During the hearing, the judge sat stone-faced as my lawyer presented the original deed, survey maps, and title insurance. Every detail was verified against county records. "The deed is clear and unambiguous," the judge declared firmly. "Mr. Chin owns Crystal Lake in its entirety. Mrs. Morrison has no legal claim to any portion of the water." Karen shot to her feet, her voice shrieking through the courtroom. "This is corruption. He paid you off." No judge would side with an outsider over a 20-year homeowner. The judge's gavel slammed. "Ordered. Mrs. Morrison, one more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt." Karen didn't stop. She screamed curses at me, at the judge, at anyone who would listen. Finally, bailiffs dragged her out as she kicked and shouted, "This isn't over. I'll destroy you." The contempt charge was just the beginning. 3 months later, her criminal trial for the shooting began. The jury watched the security footage of weeks of harassment. They saw photos of Sarah's shoulder wound, Emma's tiny scarred arm. Neighbors testified about her racist rants. Her defense claimed she was protecting her property. But when the jury learned she didn't even own lakefront land, the case collapsed. The verdict: guilty of attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and hate crime enhancements. The sentence: 15 years in prison. When HOA President Karen Morrison aimed her gun at my wife and 6-month-old daughter at our lake cabin, she thought she was defending her water. The bullet ripped through my wife's shoulder before tearing into my baby girl's tiny arm. That single gunshot was supposed to scare us off forever. What Karen didn't know was that her act of hatred would awaken something much stronger inside me, a determination to protect my family at any cost. Before watching full story, comment below from where you're watching. Also, like and subscribe for more stories. The sun was rising over Crystal Lake, painting the water gold. From the porch of our log cabin, I watched my wife, Sarah, laugh softly as she dangled her feet off the dock. She was cradling our baby girl, Emma, who squealed with delight every time ducks swam close to the shore. Her little arms stretched out toward the water, fingers grabbing at nothing. Pure joy in her eyes. For me, that morning was everything I had worked for. After a decade of 16-hour days building my tech company, I had sold it just a month earlier. The sleepless nights, the endless stress, the constant travel, all of it was behind me. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing deadlines. I was chasing moments. Moments like these: Sarah's smile glowing in the morning light, Emma's tiny giggles echoing across the still lake, and the peace of knowing we finally had a future together. Our cabin was meant to be our sanctuary, our new beginning. But peace can shatter in an instant. "Hey, get off that dock right now." The sharp, angry voice sliced through the calm morning air. Sarah froze, clutching Emma close to her chest. I set down my coffee mug on the porch railing and looked toward the hill. A woman in her 50s stormed down the slope like she owned the ground beneath her feet. Short blonde hair framed a red, furious face. She wore a blindingly yellow shirt with bold black letters that read, HOA President. I said, OFF. She barked, pointing directly at Sarah and Emma, like they were criminals trespassing on sacred land. Sarah rose slowly, confusion spreading across her face. "Excuse me," she asked carefully, adjusting Emma in her arms. "You people don't belong here," the woman snapped. "This dock, this lake, it's private property. I'm Karen Morrison, president of the Lakeside Homes Association, and I'm telling you to leave. Now." I stepped off the porch and walked toward the dock, keeping my tone calm. "Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake." She spun on me like a rattlesnake, eyes glinting with hostility. "No mistake. You think you can just show up here and act like you own the place. Newsflash, you don't. This lake belongs to the HOA. That means me." I gestured toward the cabin behind me. "Actually, we live here. That's our cabin. We bought it 3 months ago." Karen's lip curled. "I don't care if you rented that old shack. Lake access is for real homeowners, not for people like you." The way she emphasized people like you sent an icy chill down my spine. Sarah's mother was Korean. My father was black. We had faced prejudice before, but never so openly. Never so close to home. Karen's voice rose louder, echoing across the still lake. Pack your things and get out before I call the police. I'll make sure you never set foot on this dock again. Emma began to cry from the shouting, her tiny fists trembling against Sarah's chest. Sarah rocked her gently, whispering, "It's okay, baby." Please don't yell around the baby," Sarah said softly. Karen's face twisted even further. "Don't tell me what to do. This is my lake. I've lived here for 20 years. I know every single real owner, and you are not one of them." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Look, Mrs. Morrison, there's obviously some confusion, but we legally own this property. We closed on it just a few months ago. I have all the documents if you'd like to see." "I don't want to see any fake papers," Karen snapped, jabbing a finger at me. "That old Henderson place never had lake rights, and you know it. You're liars, thieves. You're trying to steal from this community." Sarah's eyes glistened, tears threatening to spill. "Can't we just talk about this like normal people?" she pleaded. Karen stepped closer, her shadow looming over Sarah and Emma. "Normal people don't barge into communities where they don't belong. Normal people respect rules." I said enough. Karen barked. She whipped out her phone and dialed. "Yes, police. I need to report trespassers at Crystal Lake. They claim they bought the Henderson cabin, but they're lying. Send someone immediately." She ended the call and smirked coldly. "My husband Harold and the other homeowners will be here soon. We'll settle this right now." I clenched my fists, heart pounding. The war over Crystal Lake had just begun. An hour later, the rumble of engines broke the uneasy silence. 5 police cruisers lined up in front of our cabin. Behind them, 15 angry neighbors gathered like an angry mob, led by Karen at the front like a general in battle. Her husband Harold, a hulking man with broad shoulders and a permanent scowl, stood at her side. "Officers," Karen shouted, dramatically, waving her arms. "These people are trespassing on private property. They're dangerous." The lead officer, Sergeant Williams, stepped forward. His expression carried the heavy look of a man who had dealt with Karen before. "Ma'am, let me handle this. They have no rights here," Karen yelled, jabbing a finger toward us. "Throw them out." Williams turned to me. "Sir, do you have proof of ownership?" Wordlessly, I handed him our deed, survey maps, and title insurance. He flipped through them carefully, lips pursed in thought. After several long minutes, he nodded. "These appear legitimate. Their property line runs directly to the water. They own about 50 feet of lakefront." Karen's face turned crimson. "Impossible. They forged it. That cabin has never had lake rights." Some neighbors exchanged uncertain glances. Whispers spread through the group. A few looked uncomfortable. Others, like Harold, only grew angrier. Williams raised his voice. "Ma'am, legal documents don't lie." Karen shrieked. "Then show me the real records. These fakes prove nothing." The officers diffused the mob and eventually left, but the damage was done. That night, Sarah sat on the couch in tears, Emma asleep in her arms. "Maybe we should just leave," she whispered. I looked out the window toward the dark, still water. My jaw tightened. "No, this is our home. We're not letting some racist bully drive us away." The harassment didn't stop. 2 mornings later, I walked outside to find all 4 tires on our SUV slashed. A few days after that, rocks shattered our cabin windows in the middle of the night. Another morning, someone dumped bags of rotting garbage across our dock. Each time, Karen just happened to stroll by when the police arrived, shaking her head. With mock sadness, "Such a shame," she said in a syrupy voice. "This used to be a peaceful neighborhood." Sarah stopped taking Emma outside. The baby's cries grew louder with every loud bang against our cabin walls. Every shout from the neighbors. Sarah's voice trembled when she said, "They want us gone. Maybe we should give them what they want." "No," I said firmly. "I'll prove it's her. I won't let her win." I called a lawyer, who confirmed again that our deed was ironclad, but without evidence tying the harassment directly to her. "The police can't do much," she explained. That was when I decided to take matters into my own hands. I installed hidden security cameras all around the property, tiny devices tucked under eaves, mounted behind trees, even disguised in birdhouses. 2 weeks later, my gamble paid off. At 2 a.m., the cameras caught Karen, Harold, and 2 of their friends creeping onto our property with bags of rocks. The footage showed them hurling stone after stone through our windows, laughing like children breaking toys. Finally, I had proof. I rushed the footage to Sergeant Williams the next morning. He studied the recordings, his tired eyes lighting up. "This is solid evidence. We can finally arrest them for vandalism and harassment." When the police arrived at Karen's house later that day, she was already prepared. She screamed at the top of her lungs. "They faked it. Everyone knows videos can be manipulated these days. This is just another one of their lies." Despite her theatrics, the police hauled her away. But by evening, she was back out on bail. And that's when things went from bad to worse. The very next night, Sarah sat with Emma on the dock. watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange as the sun set. I was inside making dinner, humming to myself, trying to convince my heart that maybe, just maybe, things would calm down. Then I heard Karen's voice, louder and sharper than ever. "I told you to stay off my lake." I bolted outside. Karen stood on the shore, about 30 feet away, her eyes blazing with hatred, but this time, she wasn't empty-handed. A black handgun gleamed in her trembling fist. When Karen was finally taken away in handcuffs, the atmosphere around Crystal Lake changed almost overnight. It felt as if a dark cloud had lifted. Neighbors who once stayed silent suddenly began talking to one another. For years, Karen's intimidation had kept them divided, afraid to speak up. Now, without her shadow looming over them, people were free. I had her illegal dock removed, an eyesore she had built on my property without permission. New security cameras were installed around the shoreline, ensuring no one could ever terrorize us again. And instead of letting anger rot inside me, I decided to build something good from the ashes of what she tried to destroy. I hired a lake management company to improve the water quality, restock fish, and preserve the shoreline. Soon, families gathered for cleanup days, barbecues, and swimming competitions. The sound of laughter replaced the echo of Karen's shouting. Sarah slowly healed. Her shoulder grew stronger, and she picked up her paintbrush again. Her canvases captured the lake in all its mood: sunsets, misty mornings, golden autumn reflections. Each stroke of paint was a reminder that beauty had survived. Emma learned to walk on that same dock where she had been shot as a baby. She toddled after ducks, squealing with delight. Every giggle was proof that Karen hadn't won. Two families who had once been driven away returned, buying cabins along the shore. This time, they were welcomed with open arms. Diversity blossomed where prejudice had once poisoned the air. Crystal Lake was finally becoming what we dreamed it could be, a sanctuary of peace, unity, and healing. 3 years passed. Crystal Lake thrived. Children played on the beach where Karen once screamed about her rules. Families of every background gathered for barbecues and Unity Days festivals. But even in prison, Karen's shadow lingered. She wrote me a letter filled with venom, insisting she'd come back to reclaim her lake. My lawyer forwarded it to the district attorney, who warned her threats could add more time to her sentence. But the letter told me everything I needed to know. Karen hadn't changed. After serving 8 years of her 15-year sentence, she was released early for good behavior. We knew better. Within a week, neighbors called me. "She's here again," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "She's standing on the road above the lake, just staring." Karen stayed just outside the restraining order boundary, her cold eyes locked on the water. Day after day, she returned. She wasn't shouting anymore. She was quieter, scarier. Then came Emma's 7th birthday party. 25 kids laughed and played at the park I had built where Karen's old house once stood. Parents chatted, the smell of grilled burgers filling the air. And then Karen appeared. Somehow, she slipped past security, standing only 50 feet away, a knife glinting in her hand. "Everyone back," I yelled. Panic spread instantly. Parents grabbed their children, pulling them close, but Emma was still on the playground, too far away. Karen's steps quickened. Her eyes burned with the same hatred I'd seen years before. "She shouldn't exist," Karen hissed. "None of you should exist. This was a pure community before you came." I sprinted, my voice cracking. "Emma, run." Emma's eyes widened. She recognized Karen from the photos I'd shown her. She bolted toward me, but Karen was closer. My heart nearly stopped, and then someone tackled Karen from behind. It was Harold, her ex-husband, the man who had divorced her years ago, but returned that day to stop her madness. "Karen, stop," he shouted, wrestling the knife from her hands. "Your hatred destroyed everything." Police swarmed in moments later, dragging Karen away as she screamed, "This isn't over." But it was. This time, the judge had no mercy. Citing her history of violence, her escalation, and her attempted kidnapping of a child, Karen Morrison was sentenced to life in prison. She would never terrorize anyone again. Years passed. Emma grew strong, her scarred arm a symbol of survival, not weakness. "These scars remind me that love was stronger than hate," she told me on her 17th birthday. Paintings won national awards, displayed in galleries. We used the proceeds to build a community center, dedicated to families who faced hatred and found healing. And every summer, hundreds gather at Crystal Lake for Unity Days, celebrating peace where once there was fear. Sometimes people ask if I regret what happened to Karen. The answer is simple. No, she chose hate. We chose love. She divided. We united. She destroyed. We rebuilt. She hated. We loved. And in the end, love won.